everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my June reading wrap-up, and I was able to read 26 books this month, so filling in my little library card. And while today will be similar to my other monthly wrap-ups, be sure to stay till the end because I do have a special spread that I'm doing now that we're halfway through the year, so be sure to stick around for that. Of my 24 books to read in 2024, I read 3 of them, which was the Stardust, Grail, the Guncle Abroad, and Of Jade and Dragons. Only a couple more left to go until this challenge is complete. My reading tracker is almost filled up, to be honest. I really think I could have read 30 books this month, but the last week of the month I got sick with COVID and my symptoms were pretty severe, so all I could really do for about 5 to 6 days was sleep and watch reruns of Bob's Burgers, so not a whole lot of reading took place. So I'm just 4 books short of hitting my reading goal for the year, but no doubt in my mind that I will fill in the last 4 in July. But look how colorful it is. I love it. For my TBRs, I didn't read any of my physical TBR, but for my Kindle Unlimited TBR, I did read Sweet Vengeance, and Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. But then for my ARC TBR, I was able to completely finish reading those with Icon and Inferno and The Stars Too Fondly. So one TBR has been completely checked off my list, and I am so excited. Sadly, I have no books for my ABC challenge this month, but I already have a couple ready for next month. Then for my favorite book of the month, that was Luna Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. I absolutely loved this book. It was an ARC that I received, and I think I read it in maybe less than 24 hours. For our book club selection this month, our theme was a main protagonist in their 30s or 40s, so we chose Joan is Okay by Huang. And then for new releases in June, this was a huge month for new releases, but I chose some of my most anticipated ones to include in this spread, and of the new releases this month, I acquired Daughter of the Merciful Deep, Wren in the Holly Library, The Stars Too Fondly, The Stardust, Grail, Of Jade and Dragons, and Hearts That Cut. Now for the main event, which is my June reading wrap-up. Here are the covers of all 26 books that I read. Quite a bit of the books that I'm going to be reading lately are ARCs that I received. I went a little overboard with requesting them, and I somehow got approved for all these books that come out in June and July. So quite a few of these are ARCs that I received. Others are just ones that I've had on my TBR for a while, and it was Pride Month in June, as most of us know, and so I did try to read some of my books that were on my TBR by queer authors, and so I'll talk about some of those later on during the review process. But overall, I think I had a good reading month. I think it was better than May. I had some really great books that I read this month. Only a couple of duds, if I'm being honest, and those were in the middle, kind of all together. But lots of sci-fi as well, which I'm always very excited about. And then I closed out a couple of series, such as the Icon and Inferno book, which is part of the Stars and Smoke series by Marie Lu, as well as the Threads That Bind series. The sequel came out this month, so I read that as well. And then I also read one of my most anticipated graphic novels, which was Suitor Armor. Highly recommend. It doesn't come out till later this fall, but definitely keep your eye out for it. I thought it was a really cute little story if you're into graphic novels. And then, of course, continued with my mystery challenge with Tanya Kappis's Campers and Criminals series. But for my stats this month, 19 of the books I read were in the fantasy genre, 7 were romance, 6 were LGBTQIA+, 5 were mystery, 4 were YA, and 4 were sci-fi. For demographics, 19 were by Caucasian authors, 9 were by LGBTQIA+ authors, or featured LGBTQIA main characters, 4 were by API authors, and 3 were by Black authors. And then for my rating, I had 2 5-star books, 13 4-star books, 8 3-star books, and 3 2-star books. For the tags that I keep track of, 17 of the books I read were checked out from my local library, 11 of them I own, and then 2 of them were listened to on Everand, 1 was KU, and 10 were ARCs. And then for the format, 69% were in audiobook format, 23% were in digital format, and 8% were in print format. And then for the page numbers, 50% of the books I read this month were under 300 pages, while about 46% were between 300 and 500 pages, and 4% were over 500 pages long. Now moving on to the review portion, I am reviewing 12 books this month. I know I cut it back down to 8 last month, but I couldn't choose just 8 books in the month of June. So starting with one of my most anticipated reads, The Guncle Abroad. This is the sequel to the very charming The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. Patrick O'Hara, now in New York and relaunching his acting career, finds himself single again at nearly 50. When his brother announces a wedding in Italy, Patrick takes his niece and nephew on a European journey to help them understand love, as he once helped them with grief. In Italy, he navigates family drama, including a groom with cold feet, a flirtatious sister, and a charming soon-to-be aunt, all leading to a disastrous rehearsal dinner. Amidst the chaos, Patrick tries to save the day and repair his own love life, rediscovering himself in the process. I will forever love this series. The Guncle was full of heartfelt moments and laugh-out-loud quips from my favorite gay uncle, and this highly anticipated sequel continues on the same trajectory, now that the kids are growing up and everyone is still figuring out how to move on from their grief. I gave it 4 stars. Then we have one of my 5-star reads of the month, The Fireborn Blade by Charlotte Bond. Knight Madeley, facing sneers from her peers and a minor infraction, must reclaim her honor by retrieving the legendary Fireborn Blade from the dragon White Lady. Her quest is fraught with the danger of ending up like countless knights before her, as a puddle of gore and molten armor. Along the way, she navigates a world of dragons, scheming squires, and sapphic love, with deceptions and double crosses, keeping the outcome uncertain. Ultimately, the Fireborn Blade is about defying rules and creating one's place in the world. This was easily one of my favorite books of June, very similar to The 6 Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Haro. The Fireborn Blade takes a very common theme of redemption and turns it into a very engaging story, with endless twists and a very promising setup for the next installment of this fantasy series. Again, I gave this 5 stars. Then we have one of my arcs of this year and this month, The Stars Too Fondly by Emily Hamilton. Cleo and her friends didn't mean to steal a spaceship. They just wanted to uncover the mystery behind the Providence crew's disappearance 20 years ago. However, their curiosity lands them on an unexpected journey to Proxima Centauri, with no way to turn back, and a hologram of the missing Captain Billy offering snide commentary along the way. The book excels in its representation and the found family dynamic among Cleo and her friends. The diverse cast and their interactions provide warmth and relatability amidst the cold vastness of space, and the mystery of the Providence crew and the strange occurrences aboard the ship add an engaging layer of suspense to the narrative. However, the juvenile behavior of the main character Cleo often detracts from the story. Her impulsiveness and lack of maturity were frustrating, especially when the stakes are so high, and the romance between Cleo and Billy felt less than compelling, often coming across as forced and lacking the emotional depth needed to be truly convincing, and that is why I gave this 3 stars. Then we have another arc that I received, Daughter of the Merciful Deep by Leslie Penelope. This book is a mesmerizing blend of historical fiction and African mythology, delivering a powerful narrative that shines a light on the submerged black towns of the American South. The story centers on Jane Edwards, a mute woman who hasn't spoken since she was 11, when armed riders forced her family and every other black resident from their hometown. 12 years later, Jane finds refuge in the all-black town of Awanasa, only to face the threat of its destruction due to the construction of a dam. The strength of Daughter of the Merciful remorseful deep lies in its character-driven storytelling. Jane's journey, her determination to save her home, and her discovery of her own voice and power are deeply compelling. The supporting characters are equally well drawn, each adding depth and richness to the narrative. Penelope excels at weaving historical elements with mythological themes, creating a tapestry that is both haunting and hopeful. Penelope's writing style is as captivating as ever, drawing readers into a world where history and myth intersect. Her ability to create immersive, emotionally resonant stories is on full display here, and I gave it 4 stars. Next up are 2 more arcs that I received, as well as 2 of my books from my 24 to read in 2024 challenge. First off is Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen. This book offers an engaging blend of Mulan-esque disguise and murder mystery, set against the backdrop of a richly imagined world. The story follows 18-year-old An Hui Ying, who dreams of becoming a world-class engineer like her father. However, her aspirations are derailed when her father is suddenly murdered. Left with only his journal of engineering secrets and a jade pendant snatched from the assassin, Ying embarks on a quest to the capital and the prestigious Engineers Guild, where she disguises herself as her brother and works to discover the mystery behind her father's assassination. Ying's journey is compelling, the mystery surrounding her father's death is intriguing, and the potential for future books in this series is promising. If you enjoy stories with strong, determined protagonists and a mix of personal and political stakes, this book is worth a read. I gave it 4 stars. Then we have the Stardust Grail by Yume Kitasei. The story follows Maya Hoshimoto, once the best art thief in the galaxy, now a graduate student of anthropology haunted by persistent and disturbing visions of the future. After a disastrous job forced her into hiding, Maya craves a quiet life. However, an old friend presents her with a job she can't refuse: find a powerful object that can save an alien species from extinction. This object, unseen in living memory, becomes the focal point of a breakneck quest filled with danger and intrigue. The novel is filled with Kitasei's signature elements: a space family solving intergalactic mysteries, intricate world building, and adding to the story this time around, a diverse array of alien species. However, despite these strengths, the Stardust Grail didn't quite capture me in the same way as The Deep Sky. The plot felt a bit more disjointed, and I struggled to empathize with the main character, Maya. Her journey, while compelling, lacked the emotional depth that made Kitasei's previous work so impactful. I gave this 3 stars. Then we have one of my favorite books of the month, Bookshops and Bone Dust. This is the prequel to the very beloved cozy fantasy Legends and Lattes by Travis Paltry. Here we find our girl Viv is injured and sent to recuperate in the sleepy town of Merk, far from her mercenary life with Rackham's ravens. There, she unexpectedly finds solace in a struggling bookshop and its foul-mouthed owner, sparking changes she never imagined. Despite the town's calm appearance, Viv encounters adventure through a suspicious traveler, a gnome with an attitude, a summer fling, and an unusual number of skeletons. Travis is the official king of cozy fantasy. Similar to Legends and Lattes, Bookshops and Bone Dust has all of the same trappings that we've come to love in this drama, with new adorable characters and the perfect backstory for Viv, giving us some insight into why she chose to leave the mercenary life and settle down for something calmer and a little less bloody. I gave it 4 stars. Then we have Went Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This focuses on hunter Demeter, whose family sacrifices their souls to slay monsters, is tasked with finding the legendary witch Baba Yaga, and must ally with fear-eating Amora Allah. Allah, cursed and waiting death, agrees to help Demeter in exchange for a cure. Together, they battle time and the Chicago underworld, but Demeter's secrets may ultimately destroy them. This book easily pulled me in with its rich Slavic folklore and kept me hooked with its fast-paced story. Roth does a fantastic job blending the eerie world of hunters like Demeter who give up their souls to fight monsters with the desperate struggles of Allah, a fear-eating Zmora, cursed and running out of time. The chemistry between Demeter and Allah is compelling, and their uneasy partnership is both gripping and heartfelt. The novella packs a punch with its vivid mythology and well-crafted characters. I gave it 4 stars. Wrapping up the reviews for this month, we have Luna Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kristen Miller. Luna has become a local celebrity by embarking on a mission to rid the public libraries of all inappropriate books, none of which she's actually read. To replace the pornographic books she's challenged at the local public library, Luna starts her own lending library in front of her home. A cute wooden hutch with glass doors and neat rows of the worthy literature that she's sure the town's readers need. The narrative brilliantly unfolds as each chapter reveals their journey of a different banned book placed into the hands of unsuspecting readers. Lindsay's nightly escapades turn Luna's seemingly harmless library into a clandestine beacon of rebellion and enlightenment. This small act of defiance sparks a larger movement within the town, culminating in a dramatic showdown between Beverly and Luna as they both run for mayor. The stakes are high, and the resolution is both satisfying and thought-provoking, illustrating the profound impact that access to knowledge can have on a community. This was my favorite book of the month, and I gave it 5 stars. Next, we have The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. This is a very cute fantasy romance featuring Heart, a marshal patrolling the magical wilds of Tanria, struggling with loneliness, while Mercy tirelessly keeps Birdsall and Son undertakers afloat, often clashing with Heart. After another frustrating encounter, Heart writes a letter to, quote-unquote, a friend, sparking an anonymous correspondence and an unexpected friendship. Unaware they are writing to each other, their bond deepens as the dangers from Tanria draw nearer. Their budding romance faces a major test when they discover their pen pals' true identities. If you love You've Got Mail and Divine Rivals, then you'll love this quirky fantasy romance inspired by one of my favorite romance tropes, secret pen pals. Heart and Mercy have a very fraught relationship, but when you throw in a bit of undertaking and a dash of demon slaying, eventually things start to work themselves out. Coupled with some great supporting characters, the start of this series definitely sets the bar high as it takes inspiration from one of my all-time favorite rom-coms. I gave it 4 stars. Next, we have Freshwater by Akwaeke Emezi. This was our book club book of the month of June. Ada begins her life in the south of Nigeria as a troubled baby and a source of deep concern to her family. When Ada comes of age and moves to America for college, the group of selves within her grows in power and agency. A traumatic assault leads to a crystallization of her alternate selves, Ashigara and St. Vincent, as Ada fades into the background of her own mind, and these selves, now protective, now hedonistic, move into control. Ada's life spirals in a dark and dangerous direction. Emezi delivers an impactful literary punch in their debut. Freshwater delves into the fractured psyche of Ada, whose alternate selves take over after a traumatic experience. Emezi's narrative, driven by the voices within Ada, is both powerful and mesmerizing, offering a unique perspective on identity and mental health. I gave this 4 stars. And lastly, we have Sweet Vengeance by Viano Oniyama. Joy needs a deal with a demon to bring an end to the man who's ruined her life. Malachi needs a deal with a human so he can remain in the mortal realm, far from the sentries looking to drag him back to his sect of hell. It's a match seemingly made in heaven, except Malachi doesn't expect Joy's thirst for vengeance to taste so sweet, and Joy doesn't expect a freaking demon to revive everything in her she's thought long dead. Sweet Vengeance is a short but intense fantasy romance read featuring heavy themes, but I found myself flying through this book and absolutely loving it. I love Joy and especially Malachi. I'm a sucker for a cinnamon roll monster MMC. Joy has a lot of trauma she works on throughout the story, and Malachi is there to help her cope throughout while also indulging her in her more violent urges, and I am here for it. I gave this 4 stars. And this concludes the June wrap-up portion of this video. Now moving on to what I promised earlier, a little surprise spread for you all, and that is my favorite books of 2024 so far. I chose 4 of my favorite books each month, and I also collected all of the stats from the first 6 months of the year, so I thought I would make a little mid-year spread with all of those and kind of go through some of my favorite books of the year so far. Starting with January, we have So Let Them Burn, Kamilah Cole's debut, and then the new series by Sarah El-Arifi, the first book Feybound, and then the first book in the Emily Wilds series, the Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett, and then a graphic novel by a Palestinian author, Squire, by Sarah Alfagin. Then we have my favorites of February, which are one of my favorite authors, S.T. Gibson, her new book, An Education in Malice, and then the third book in the Halfling Saga series, A Vicious Game by Melissa Blair. And then you had Allie Hazelwood's newest book and her first foray into fantasy, and that was Bride. And then I finally managed to read Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. And then for March, we had A Tempest of Tea by Hafsah Faizal, Most Ardently by Gabe Kolnavoa, Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek, and then one of my favorite horror reads of the year, The Dead Take the A Train by Cassandra Kah. Moving on to April, we had The Deep Sky by Yume Kitasei, then Shirin J. Chow's Iron Widow, and one of my Book of the Month books, Annibot by Sierra Greer, and then we had The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers by Samuel Burr. Then in May, which was dominated by graphic novels, but my favorite book of that month was definitely Gay the Pray Away by Natalie Naudis, one of my favorite audiobook narrators, followed by Rachel Smith's Lore Olympus, Volume 6, and then Brie Paulson's Garlic and the Vampire and Garlic and the Witch. And then, of course, for June, my favorite book of the month, Luna Dean's Little Library of Banned Books by Kristen Miller, followed by The Fireborn Blade by Charlotte Bond, Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldry, and Leslie Penelope's Daughter of the Merciful Deep. So I think overall the first half of 2024 is off to a great start. A lot of these books were books that were a part of my 24 books to read in 2024, and a lot of them were arcs that I received, so I might talk about this later, but the first half of 2024 has been quite, I guess, polarizing when it comes to the arcs I received. Most of the 2-star reads that I've read this year have been books that I received advanced copy of, but some of my favorite books also have been arcs as well. So it's been interesting, but yeah, I needed a little help keeping these little trapdoors up in this spread. But for my 2024 statistics so far, the demographics of the 156 books I've read, 87 are by Caucasian authors, 35 are by API authors, 34 are by LGBTQIA+ authors, 20 are by Black authors, 7 are by Latinx Hispanic authors, and then I also had 6 by Middle Eastern or Arab authors, and then I had 3 books by Indigenous authors. For the genre, 86 were fantasy, 37 were LGBTQIA+, 32 were young adult, 32 were romance, 32 were mystery, and 19 were sci-fi. Then for the ratings, I had 12 books that were 5 stars, 79 books that were 4 stars, 54 books that were 3 stars, and 13 books that were 2 stars. Then we have the page count. 40% of the books were under 300 pages, 56% were between 300 and 499 pages, and 4% were above the 500 page mark. Then we have the tags that I keep track of. 85 books were from the library. I own 64 of the books that I read. Then we have 62 books were arcs, 11 I listened to on the Everand app, 6 books were from my KU subscription, and 6 books I listened to through Spotify. And then in the format, 63% were audiobook format, 33% were in digital format, and 4% were in print format. After a good start to the year, this is making me very excited for the second half of 2024. But here is my full flip through of my June 2024 reading wrap up, as well as highlights from the first half of the year. Always a friendly reminder to hit that like button if you liked what you saw today, and just so you don't miss any of my upcoming reading wrap-ups, be sure to subscribe to my channel and get those notifications. But thank you all for joining me today. In the meantime, happy reading, everyone.